Good evening. I've got two hands here to review. First hand, I have King Jack. This is a 25 NL game. So we have Under the Gun raises 5 big blinds. This is 4 hands. That's all I have on him. He's played half of them, and really I don't have much on that. So just know that we're playing six-handed basically. What do I think he's going to be playing? With five big blinds, he could be raising for value. Could be raising, just a standard rate range. Maybe he's sizing it larger because he doesn't necessarily want a call, or he's sizing larger because he actually has a quality hand. All I'm going to do is just pick there. And then it's to me, and I think I should just fold this, be done with it. It's King Jack offsuit. We don't know what he's playing, especially for a raise this size. Just be done with it. Normally, if he goes smaller, he has a weaker range, but if he goes larger, he's probably has something that he wants to get fold. So maybe like nines through queens, maybe like ace queen hand that he doesn't want to play out of position. I just called, and then big blind called. So what is the big blind going to play? He's playing 22-2 over 700, almost 800 hands. His pre-flop call in the big blind is 26%. So I don't think he's just calling any hands. I don't have him 3-betting at all. So we're looking at, going to be a tighter range. Maybe something like that. Going to be a tighter range. Definitely with the suited, probably broadways. He could easily have aces and kings because he doesn't 3-bet. So 3 of us take the flop. I'm in position. That's a positive, but I am likely behind everyone. Flop comes out king 6-6, 6 of hearts, and 6 of spades. And this guy checks. I'm going to say no big surprise. He is a passive player, and he probably isn't going to bet unless he flops something big. And even here, I think he would call with sixes. Would he bet? I think he would probably bet ace-king, maybe. That's about it. So now we have a continuation bet, base 50%. Maybe he's going to be firing out a continuation bet with somewhat of a wide range. I mean, that board really isn't going to hit a whole lot of callers. May have a 6, might not have a 6. So if we look at it, I'm going to say he's got any pair, probably any ace high. Probably any ace high I'm going to say that's probably his c-betting range. And then it comes to us, and what should we do? I don't think this guy's going to call. If I call and he calls, then we're basically done. We have to be done with the hands. But good chance that he doesn't have anything. He's just going to fold anyways. If I raise and he calls, I'm in bad shape. Really bad shape. I think if I bet and he calls, we're looking at 6 or pocket kings or something like that. If I raise, what is he going to call with? So I do think that if I raise, he's probably going to be folding a lot of these weaker hands. And the question is, should I do that? Calling now kind of, I think you would keep kings in the range. I think you can justify maybe backdoor flush draws in the range. I'm not sure if raising is going to accomplish anything other than getting worse hands to fold. If I call, he could fire out another bet, or he could check, and I could check behind, and then possibly get a small value and get, let's say, a middle pair to call. And I think that's probably what I should be doing. So I did call, and then the ace of hearts comes out. And he checks, and at this time I have to look at it and say, let's get rid of this. We're looking at king of spades and jack of diamonds. So with this board, now we're looking at, I do think full house is probably going to still continue betting. I think two pairs going to still continue betting, so that's basically ace kings. I think top pair is probably still going to bet here, so all of the aces will continue betting here. Middle pair, maybe. So I'm going to get rid of all of these hands that I think he should have been betting, and then we're getting all of this other stuff here. So let's see here. What do we have? King, queen, king, jack. Yeah, it's all the middle pair. So he's checking here, and if I bet, what do I think he's going to call with? I think he's going to call with the flush draw, and probably that's it. So I would say if I check here, then on the river, I may be able to eke out a value bet and get maybe a weaker king or maybe one of these pocket pairs to call me. So I check behind. I like the check again, and then the 7 of clubs comes out. I do think I'm going to probably be ahead. So he checks, and now I think we need to bet and try to get some money. My guess is bet maybe 20 big blinds, about half pot. I think he could call. Maybe a little bit smaller, but I'm worried that if I bet smaller, he can come over the top, and then I'm going to have to, kind of fold because I don't know if he's a thinking player. So I think half pot's gonna define our ranges. So yes, he could have a full house, could have had a 7 that he just filled up, but I'm targeting these middle pairs, and really I should say the weak pairs. So if it's the weak pairs and he calls, we're at 72%. That's what I'm targeting. I missed the bet, and he shows queen. So I do think that if I bet here, he calls. I think if I bet the turn, he's probably just going to fold. But since I showed weakness on the turn, I think high likelihood he's going to call that half pot bet. So I think I missed my value bet here. Other parts of the hand, don't like the call pre-flop at all. I think king jack, we should just get rid of it. All right, this is hand number 1. Let me get hand number 2 ready. All right, hand number 2 is ace king, 10 NL game. So we have hijack opens to 3.5. I'm going to assume that that's kind of a standard raise for him. I do have raise early position limper from MP with queen jack off. So based on this, he's playing 32-16. His pre-flop raise, or I should say his raise first in from mid position, is coming in at 27%. He does seem to be a little bit looser in late position. So we're going to look at, say, pockets, suited aces. We're going to say ace 10. I think our broadways, it'll be suited broadways. Probably these suited one gappers, maybe those king 9, queen 9. I think these offsuits, maybe all the way down to ace 8. That's 25%. Maybe 10-9. So I think that's probably his range. And ace king's looking pretty good. So the question is, should we raise or fold? I think I should not fold. I think fold's out of the question. Should we raise or call? Looking at players behind us, I don't see any player that is overly loose that would come along. And ace king, can do fine with a multi-way pot. If we flop top pair, we're going to have top kicker with it. I think suited would be a little bit better. Gives us a little bit more opportunity to play post flop. But with ace king, I think we could be justified in calling. I actually like a raise here. He's going to be playing fairly wide, and I think we have a strong enough hand where we can 3-bet, and if called, have a solid hand. Kind of balances times we do this with, let's say, ace deuce to 5s, or maybe like a jacks 10 or 10s type hand. So let's see what I did. I just called. I didn't raise. I think that was probably a mistake. I'm going to say it probably wasn't a big mistake, but I think it's a mistake. Now we have him. He has initiative on us, so we have to realize that, and we also have to acknowledge that our call makes our hand look weaker. So I don't think he's necessarily going to put ace king in our range. Flop comes out king high. which is great for us. Gives us top pair, top kicker, and we have the ace of diamonds, so we block that diamond flush. He bets 5.6. What is he going to bet with? I do think his C bets are basically 90%. He's C betting with essentially his entire hand. I think the only time he's not going to C bet is if this board was just so bad for him that he's going to check. So what would constitute a bad board? 9-8-7, all of one suit. Maybe 9-8-7, two suited. I think that hits the calling range so hard that I don't necessarily think he's going to bet. Or if it comes out, let's say ace king, that hits his range so hard that if he has an ace or king, he's not going to bet it. He's just going to check it. So he bet, and I don't think this is a strong bet at all. Question is, should we raise or should we call? So we missed the raise pre-flop. I think if we want anything, if we bet here, he's going to fold all of his hands, and I think those are going to be the hands that he ultimately checks with on the turn. Now, he may have a few more hands that he would check with. So let's look at it. We have 100 hands, or 100% of his hands. If I raise, what is he going to call? I'm not sure if he calls queens. I think he calls top pair plus. I don't think he calls middle pair, smaller pair. I think he calls with the flush draw. I think he calls with the open and straight draw. Does he call with the gut shot? Maybe. I think he calls once because he already has money in, and then if he doesn't connect, he'll be done with the hand. And that's an iffy type of proposition. Let's say that we're going to assign, let's say 60%. So I think it's 60%. There it is. Oh, double click a filter to apply it to the entire range. All right. So we've got 60% that he would actually call if I raise. What about these combo draws? Flush draw plus pair, definitely calling. Flush draw plus open and a straight draw, definitely calling. Flush draw plus gut shot, definitely calling. Open and a straight draw with a pair and a gut shot with a pair, he doesn't have those. So I think that's his calling range. So we go from, let's say, 100% down to 29%. He's folding, 70% of hands, and those are hands that we beat. So I kind of think we want to keep all of those hands in. We have the ace of diamonds. We block the nut flush draw, and I think that is really important and is a big contributor to this decision just to call. So I'm glad I did just call. 7 of diamonds hits. Now that seems scary, but we know he can't have the nut flush draw. So what is he going to do? He checks to us. I think he can check his entire range here. I think if he checks, he's checking that flush. And he's checking it because I called and I could have the flush myself. So if he bets and I call, I think he's going to be hard pressed to see river. But if he checks and I check behind, it may suggest to him that perhaps I don't have the diamonds. So even though the flush is 14.45% of his range, I don't think that's what he has. I think he's got something more like this. Sets two pairs. So let's get all of those out. So he had his, basically his 100% of his range. Let's get back to that. And then the 7 of diamonds comes. So yeah, that's better. So the flush is representing less than 5%. I'm not going to worry about it. He checks. I think he's going to check his, I'll assume that he would have bet his flush. So he'd bet his sets, two pair, over pair. Maybe not sets or two pair. Now I take that back. I think he'd check those. Because a lot of people worry when that draw gets there. So we're going to basically select everything here. So everything's in his checking range, and then it's to us. Should we bet or should we call? Should we just check? If we bet, what calls? I think a set calls, 2 pair calls, over pair calls, top pair probably calls, pocket pair below top pair. Ooh, I don't think he calls. I don't think any of these middle pair, weak pairs call. I think the flush draw is going to call. I think the second nut flush draw is probably going to call the king. What about the queens? Maybe. We'll leave them in. Open-ended straight draw definitely is going to call. I don't think the gut shot's going to call. So we're looking at 26.1% that he's going to call. And of those that he calls, we're at 63%. So if we're going to look to try to get money in the pot, I do think we should probably bet here. I think if we check, we open up the possibility that he's just going to shove over us, and I don't think we could possibly call that. So I'm glad I bet. Did I bet enough? I think pot is a little bit too much. I think pot's going to get probably the third nut to fold. 2/3 might be a little too large. I think maybe I should have gone a little bit smaller. He calls, so I'm going to say he calls with that range, and then 2 diamonds hits, and now let's see what he does. He checks, and the question is, okay, what does he have? I've got 40% of his range is a flush. I do think he's going to be calling. I think he's going to call with all of his flush hands, probably, including this really weak one. Do I think he's calling with the set? Probably. 2 pair. I don't know. Maybe he'll fold the set. Some people will fold the set. Some people won't. It's hard to judge. Depending on my bet size. If I bet pot, I don't think he calls with the weak flush or the 4th nut flush, and possibly not even the 3rd nut. All right. So I think if I bet pot, he's calling with just that range, 30%. If I bet half pot, he's calling with a little bit more. But is that sufficient? Does that add enough? So let's see here. If I bet, let's stay 45.9. So 100%. If I bet 49, so he is going to call. Let's figure out the call. 31.3%. So 0.313. 31.3% of the time, I will win that 45.9 plus another 45.9. So the pot plus his bet. And then the other time, which is 69.7, I win just what's in the pot. So 60.7. If I bet smaller, let's say I bet half pot and he calls with the nut and the weak nut. All right, now we're at 40%. 40% times, we are going to win 45.9 plus 45.9 times 0.5, so half more. And then the other 60%, 0.60, 594. I will just win what's in the pot. And you can see it's much less. I think a pot size bet here. I don't think we have a large enough jump here with the hands that he calls to justify moving down to half pot. I think if this 4th nut and the weak were, let's say, another 10 or 15, another 15%, I think we may be able to argue betting a little bit smaller. But I do think we should be betting pot. I'm glad I did. He calls. I'm going to be expecting to see a flush here. And he shows a 3 diamond, which is kind of strange. He calls with a weak diamond, so I bet pot, and he still calls with it. That's great. That's great. So I think that works. Do I have 3s in his range? No, I actually took those out. So when we look at when did we take it out? When I bet. So I took out this weak flush draw. If I know he has that weak flush draw, now we're looking at that. Now we get our big increase where he's only calling, 11% he has a second nut, another 11% he has a third nut, and then 13% fourth nut, and 26% is the weak. If we know he's going to call with all of those, we bet the pot. If we don't, if we think he's only going to call half pot with all of these, I think now we'd be justified in betting half. But works out. I didn't have it because I didn't think he'd actually call with those weak flush draws on the river, to my turn bet, but he did. So mark this up for a decent hand. Kind of put it in and figured out, yeah, he does have that diamond. That's what he was drawing to. All right, hopefully you enjoyed it. Look tomorrow for a couple more hands.